Hello, welcome to another episode of Pickle's Garage. This is a Jeep episode. Now, if you've watched a few of my videos, you know that I've had to play around with the electric fan quite a bit. I've repaired the relays, I've repaired wiring on it, and finally I just decided I'd rather just have like a manual switch on it. That way I can just control it. I don't have to worry about the relay being finicky anymore. Even though it was repaired, I just figured this was going to be the best way to do it. However, the issue I was having is a lot of people were giving tons and tons of different examples of how you can wire this up. It doesn't seem like there would be so many different options, but just it became kind of difficult to find just a very straightforward answer for how to wire up an electric fan, specifically for a Jeep, but I mean, this really should work for any vehicle. So I just want to show you how I did it, and I want you to feel free to take this as kind of a high level, you're not really super comfortable with electrics, or maybe this is one of the first times you've done it. I'm not going to go through the rigmarole of, amps and volts and any of that crap. I'm just going to show you the exact way to set it up in real time, no diagrams. And then you can either take that and use it as a reference point for other people's videos, or, maybe you're able to do everything from what I did. I don't like to show a lot of like what I consider hackery videos when it comes to working on the Jeep. Mostly I just want to do backyard solves, but this is about as fringe as I think I'll get, because it does have the potential to be kind of ugly. But I'm going to show you how to get it done, and then I'm going to clean it up, and then I imagine you would too. So items that you'll need is, obviously you need to make sure that your electric fan is functioning properly to begin with. I do have a video where I basically just tested out what was the power line, and then what would be your ground, or something that would connect to your actual relay. But you'll just connect the power to the red, obviously, and then your ground to your negative, and so that will test whether your fan is functional to begin with. Now, other items that you'll need is you're going to need a couple different gauges of wire. So they say for anything that's coming off of the battery that initially goes into the relay should be something thicker, like a 10 to 12. And then, you could do that similar with your grounds, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that big. And then everything else can be smaller. I think I have 16 on the line that actually goes to the switch, and I'll show you more detail of that here in a little bit. But the other thing that I did is I do have a fuse. So I have a 30 fuse right here, and so that is directly coming off of the battery, and then it goes into my relay here. So I'm going to use this as kind of the central point, and then I'll show you where this is all kind of connecting into. You could also kind of consider the fan as your central point too, but just to make it easy, I'm going to consider this as my home base, and then I'll just kind of keep coming back to this. So as you saw, the first line coming directly from the battery here into my fuse, that is going to go into my relay, and that's going to be number 30. You're not really going to be able to see it, but if you get a 4-prong relay, then it will be number 30. There is a diagram on here. It's a little blurry, but that is going to be your 30 down there. Now, for whatever reason, they originally were showing this on the shelves, and now it's kind of in the back. It might not be in the back for you where you're located, but just keep that in mind. You might have to ask for them to grab this. They're going to ask you what vehicle you need, and just keep pressing on them. Just say, I need the 4-prong fuse, Novita. If you want to look up that RL44, you can do that. So that's my first, right? Now the next portion is going to be your ground. Now your ground is going to be this 85 right here, right there, and I'm taking that, and I'm taking it all the way right here. Now the 2002 Jeep Grand Cherokee that I'm working off of, it already had like a dimple hole, kind of like this one. Right here is a little bigger. Basically I just took my drill and I opened up it a little bit, and that's kind of twofold benefit because it also allows there to be a better connection to a ground, because there won't be paint on the metal. So that is my ground. So again, coming back to our home base here with the relay, the next portion is going to be the fan power itself. So that is going to be this upper one here, which is going to be your 87. So you take that, and that's going to go to your power on your fan. If you have a similar one to me, then the power is actually a blue cable, or wire I should say. And so you'll just have to kind of splice it down into that. Now the other portion is going to be your black wire, which is your ground. And here I connected it to another red wire here. So that's coming up here. And then that is actually forked onto another standard ground area right there. And so I just have a little fork prong, and that is going onto my ground. I could have technically put that one on another one, like this is also my ground here. But just in the moment, this is kind of how I set it up initially. Okay, so far we've gone over your initial power through a fuse going into your 30. We've gone over your 85, which is going into your ground up here. We went over your actual power one, which is your 87, which is going into the fan, and then the fan going into the ground. Now, the next portion is going to be your switch. So your switch is going to be this 86 right here, and you'll see that white cable goes all the way into the cab. And on the other side, because it's a two-prong switch, which I'll show you here in a second, is the yellow wire, which comes right back to the battery. So the issues that I was initially having is I initially had the switch going to a ground in the cab, but I didn't have it going back to a power. I'll show you more of that once I'm actually in the cab, but this is effectively what you need. So if you're going to use a relay, you're going to need the power from the battery, you're going to need the power going to your actual fan, you're going to need the fan then grounded, you're going to need a ground for the relay itself, which is right here, and then you're going to need the item that is going to enact the relay, which is right here. And that switch that's going to enact the relay also needs its own power. So that is essentially all the connections that you need for this to function properly. So let me go ahead and go into the cab now. Okay, here we are in the cab itself. Basically, I just fed the wires through. There's a port up there, a rubberized port, so that way you don't get any sort of fumes into your cab. So just be careful you don't rip it or anything. You can take like a hard wire or something, or like one of those solid wires to push through, and then just tape these to them and then pull it through. So as you remember, I have the white actually going to the relay, and then I have the yellow going to the battery itself. Now you can get a lot more organized with the colors that you pick, but technically it doesn't matter as long as you're able to keep track of it. Now the final thing is just a simple two-prong on-off switch. This one is a 20 volt, 15 amp, but as you can see, when I switch it on, you can start to hear the fan. There you go. So I can now turn on the fan whenever I want, and that is ultimately the goal here. So the thing you can remember is there are different ways to set this up. So as you saw, this yellow goes directly back to the battery itself, but technically there are hot wires in here, powered wires, that when the ignition is on, it's actually going to, and you can ignore this, this is just, the guy before me was trying to do something, I don't know what, but there are wires back up here that actually show, or that actually will have power once the ignition is on. And so technically you can make it so that you don't even need a switch, and you can just have the ignition turn on, and then all of a sudden your fan could turn on. And it could just always be on. Or you can have a switch, but that would make it so that you can't actually use the switch on off unless the ignition was on. So where that's a benefit is obviously if if you forget to leave your fan on, or you forget and you leave your fan on, that your battery's going to come back and it's going to be dead. So if you make it so that you only are able to use the switch when there is power through the ignition, then you might be able to save yourself that. I just wanted to be able to turn on the fan whenever I wanted, and it's also a little simpler this way. Again, you're probably gonna have to find some additional videos if you want to do it in the I guess more complex way, but essentially I just wanted a really simple way to then mount this inside my cab, and then I could just turn on and off the switch whenever I need to. So like I said, there's a lot of different videos of this being super duper complicated for whatever reason, and I just wanted to make an overly simplified. I'm not gonna give you a history or a science lesson or anything like that with how volts or amps works. I just want to show you what exactly I use. So you get a very simple switch. You get 16 gauge wire here for this actual switch. You get the slightly thicker gauge wire, the 10 to 12 with your fuse, and they sell them exactly like this. You can just splice it right to the relay there, and then everything else you're just hooking it up to the fan. You can use 14 gauge. I use 14 for these, and 16 for the switch, and then the 12 for the power. So that is how you do it, and those are the items that you need. All of it is relatively cheap, and now I won't have to worry about trusting a relay, the original relay anyways. All right, thank you for watching.